What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. We got a fun episode coming up today, probably one of our longer videos because I want to be thorough as we go through my perfect dream 2025 offseason for the Browns. Now, before we look at any steps I want to see the Browns make, I think it's a good starting point to look at my previous perfect offseason plans for the Browns, just so you kind of have an idea of, who I am and what I'm working with here. So let's start off with last year where I had a 5-step plan. It started with signing Mike Evans. Ultimately, that was never possible. The Bucs extended him before free agency, so a bit of a downer. Nick Chubb returns. Ultimately, Chubb didn't have a huge impact on the field, but I think we can all agree that it's better off that Chubb came back and the Browns did not release him. Number 3, trade for Dre Greenlaw. Cleveland's linebacker room was pretty good with Jordan Hicks and even Devin Bush, so not a big necessity, but with JOK's injury, maybe the Browns do go after a linebacker this year. Draft Byron Murphy. Ultimately, in January, I wasn't really sure he would go in the draft. He ended up being a round 1 pick, so would have been nice for the Browns in round 2, but his stock went up too much. And then step 5 was re-sign Zadarius Smith, which the Browns did do. So that was my perfect offseason plan in 2024. In 2023, if you're wondering, it was sign Daron Payne or trade for DeForest Buckner. I wish they did one of those two moves still to this day, but there'll always be the question of how available were those guys to the Browns. Step 3 was trade back in the NFL draft, which they kind of did. That's the offseason where they traded their second for Elijah Moore. So in some way, shape, or form, they did kind of move back. Step 4 was re-sign Anthony Walker, which they did. It's just unfortunate that he kept getting injured. And then step 5 was release John Johnson, which they did to open up some cap space. And my first ever, in case you're wondering, perfect offseason plan was back in 2022. Draft Garrett Wilson. This was before the Deshaun Watson trade, so they still had a first-round pick to use, and I think that would have been a good move if they were in round 1. Signed Chris Godwin. He signed with the Bucs. That would have been a really fun pairing, kind of moving on from OBJ and Jarvis Landry. Would have been one heck of a duo for the Brownies. Re-signed Jadeveon Clowney, which they did, and that's when he kind of had a disappointing season for the Browns. Extend Denzel Ward. Signed B.J. Hill. Hill has been one of the better defensive tackles in football, one of the under-the-radar guys for the Bengals, so would have been nice to have him up north in Cleveland. So with that, now let's talk about 2025, because the biggest question everyone has, and we are all kind of going at each other's throats over, is what should the Browns do with the second overall draft pick? Should they draft a quarterback, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Should they trade back? Should they stay put at number 2 and take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, one of the best overall prospects in this draft? So I'm going to take the top 3 most popular answers here and ask you guys right now. You make the call. Should the Browns at pick number 2 take a quarterback, trade back from number 2, or just stay put and draft Abdul Carter? My preference goes trade, Carter, and then drafting a quarterback. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. But with that being said, let's get into my perfect offseason plan, starting with signing Kirk Cousins. I'm back and forth on this one, but in order to make this step here not as tough as a blow if you don't like Kirk, here's my second step, signing Justin Fields. I know that might sound a little strange, but I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers offseason a year ago, and they went out and they signed Russell Wilson, and then they hedged their bets a little bit, and they traded for Justin Fields. And in this case, the Browns don't have to trade for anyone. They have to give up no draft capital. However, that is under the assumption that Kirk Cousins is released by the Atlanta Falcons, which I believe he will be. He's got $10 million coming his way if he's on their roster after the 5th day of the new league year. So my guess is the Falcons are just going to kind of wipe their hands and move on from Kirk and get ready for Michael Penix. So I would like to see the Browns go out and sign both of these quarterbacks. Do I believe both these quarterbacks are going to be great fits for Browns fans or overall just excellent additions at the quarterback position? To be honest, not really. I think you're looking at a tough situation if you're the Browns when it comes to finding a quarterback this offseason. And I think Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins might be one of your 2 better options, which is why I'd like to see the Browns hedge their bets and bring in both. Kirk Cousins did not have a great ending to the season with the Falcons. He was benched after a really tough 5-game stretch, including a 4-game span where he threw no touchdowns and 8 interceptions. So I'm not here to say that Kirk Cousins is some incredible quarterback right now, but I am here to say that if you can get Kirk Cousins back to his pre-injury form and maybe just a little bit more time for his body to recover can do that, you would have a fantastic quarterback like the one in 2023 before the injury, 2022, 2021, and for $1.75 million vet minimum, because that's what he would sign for in the open market, because the rest of his $27 million base salary is guaranteed from the Atlanta Falcons. And Kirk Cousins had a pretty strong year when him and Kevin Stefanski overlapped back in 2019. So they've got the familiarity. There's the connection between the two. But if Cousins does not return to his pre-injury form, you've got Justin Fields, who I think is a good quarterback. I think he is a starting quarterback in the NFL. I do have my concerns over the amount of sacks and the turnovers he's taken and how the Browns have dealt with a quarterback who's been sacked a lot last year and a league-leading turnovers for 2 straight years. So those are red flags to me. But ultimately, I'm left with there's not a lot of great options. And I know that the contingency of people out there that want the Browns to go out and draft a quarterback, one of their biggest arguments is, well, if you don't want them to draft a quarterback, give me a better option. Here's the tough pill that people need to swallow. There is probably no good option this offseason. There's not a great option in the draft. I don't think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are prospects that with a first or second overall draft pick can elevate people around them. And that's what quarterbacks going first or second overall are supposed to do. To me, they look like quarterbacks that if they went in late round 1, round 2, round 3, with a good system around them, could be successful quarterbacks potentially. But that's with a good system around them. If you're picking first or second, you have a lot of issues. And usually the quarterbacks that go first or second are supposed to alleviate and solve some of those issues for you. Like, hey, even though there's not a great receiving core, a great run game, I'm such a superstar that we can overcome that. I don't see that from Cam Ward or Shedeur. So that's one big reason why I don't want the Browns to go quarterback in round 1 or round 2. And as for free agency, there's not a lot of great options out there. Jameis, maybe. They benched him. Or maybe they just benched him so they could tank with Dorian Tank Robinson. Sam Darnold, I wouldn't get your hopes up for. I think he's coming back to Minnesota. If he does hit the open market, let's have that conversation then. But for now, I'm not going to get blue-balled by a quarterback who I think is never going to be available. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Jacoby Brissett, maybe. I could be talked into that. But look around, guys. There's not a lot of great options out there. So with that in mind, what I don't want to see the Browns do is, in an offseason where there's not a ton of great options at quarterback, overspend at the position. Like, it's just time to face reality. This is a bad offseason for quarterback-needy teams. So don't make 2 wrongs make a right, where it's a bad offseason, so let's go out there and let's use a high draft pick, or let's spend a boatload of money in free agency. No, I think you just kind of cut your losses and go, let's address other needs this offseason and gear up for attacking the quarterback position in 2026. Not trying to solve the problem this offseason and creating a bigger problem for the Browns next offseason when they still need a quarterback, and none of their other issues were solved this offseason because the Browns tried to fix the quarterback problem this offseason. Now, when it comes to Justin Fields, I've seen his name tossed out there a bunch. So do you want the Browns to sign Fields? Yes or no? I want to hear from everyone in the comment section below. So scroll on down and give me your thoughts. My step 3 of a perfect offseason plan. I tossed and turned him on this one. But I'm going to say trade the number 2 pick to the Las Vegas Raiders, who are picking number 6. I went back and forth on this one because I thought, well, why not just trade back to 3 with the Giants, and then with that 3rd overall draft pick, take Abdul Carter? I opted against that, and both have some good pros to it. But I went with this trade right here, where the Browns and Raiders swap first-round draft picks, and in exchange for moving back 4 spots, Cleveland picks up a future first-rounder from the Raiders and a 3rd-round pick from the Raiders. The reason why I went with this over the Giants at number 3 is I really want that future first. Because if the Browns are mid-ish in 2025, right? Not bad enough to get a top 3 draft pick and get a quarterback, but not good enough to make the playoffs or make some serious noise. I would like to have an extra line in the pond for the 2026 NFL draft. And I'm willing to bet that the Raiders could stink in 2025. And just like how the Bears had the Panthers' first overall pick after trading back and allowing Carolina to get Bryce Young, the Bears stunk the next season, but not enough to get in the top 3 of the draft. But the Panthers did stink enough to pick first overall. So right now, I'm thinking I'd rather have a future first rounder that could be the Browns' pick to select a quarterback instead of moving back one spot, probably getting a 3rd round pick from the Giants, taking Abdul Carter, who I think is going to be a really good player at the next level. But ultimately, the Browns then go into the 2026 draft with only one way to solve the quarterback problem: their own 1st round draft pick. And if they do not stink enough to be picking towards the top, they will then be left with no good option. In this scenario here, the Browns have 2 options. Either they stink or the Raiders stink to get that 2026 early 1st round draft pick. So with that in mind, you can look at the Browns' current 2025 draft pick capital, and we're talking about adding a 3rd round pick to it and a future first in 2026. But adding a 3rd rounder, now you've got 3 3rd round draft picks to pick from. So for everyone out there that wants the Browns to take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, can I give you a consolation prize? When you have 3 3rd round draft picks, I will green light the Browns to pick any quarterback in round 3. If it doesn't work out, boo-hoo. You've got 2 extra 3rd rounders. That's a spot where I'm okay with throwing for the bullseye in round 3, and if you miss, it's not going to set you back. You've got 2 more 3rd round draft picks. So if you want Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Dart, I don't really have a strong opinion of one over the other, because between you and me, I don't think any of them are going to amount to be serious NFL starters down the line. But with an extra 3rd rounder, it's all right if you use one of those picks on a guy like that and it doesn't work out. You should still have a successful draft with 2 more 3rd round picks to use. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about who the Browns should take at pick number 6 after trading with the Raiders. But first, quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So if you want to go see a Cavs game or any other sporting event in your area, or say a comedy show, for example, it was my birthday just a few days ago, and my birthday gift was tickets to go see Shane Gillis, all thanks to Game Time. We were able to save $20 off thanks to promo code CHATSPORTS once I explained to my mom how Game Time and just the internet works. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Getting back to a perfect offseason for Cleveland, after trading back 4 spots with the 6th overall pick, I'm going to have the Browns select cornerback Will Johnson. It is a dream perfect offseason, but I try to keep some sense of realism. And in all reality, I don't see Abdul Carter falling to number 6, because that would be the dream pick, trade back and get Abdul Carter. But I don't see him leaving the top 5, and I don't see the Browns being able to trade up to draft Abdul Carter, because my guess is the Patriots at 4 is the back end for him. New England dead last in sacks this year. That seems like an absolute perfect marriage, and I don't see the Patriots trading out of number 4 if they need Abdul Carter. So with that in mind, I opted to go with Will Johnson. Could have gone with maybe Mason Graham here or Ashton Genty or an offensive lineman. But I'm going to go with what I think is the pure best player available. And I understand that some of you may not be a big fan of the guy from the team up north, but I look at that 2023 season, 4 picks, 3 pick sixes in an entire collegiate career, and an incredible resume. 6'2", 202 pounds. Let's start right there. Size-wise, perfect size. I mean, usually people get hung up too much on like quarterback hand size and little things like that. When it comes to DBs, I'm really keen on looking at the height and the wingspan because every inch, that's what she said, matters when it comes to breaking up a pass versus letting a touchdown get scored on top of you. So the first team All-American 2023, first team All-Big Ten. He was the defensive MVP in the national championship game, All-American. The guy with all those accolades, who unfortunately missed a good chunk of 2024 with a turf toe injury, I think is a great selection for the Browns at pick number 6. I am confident in the prospect of Will Johnson. I think he is going to be a surefire NFL starter for 10 seasons. So then the question becomes, is corner a good position for the Browns to target? Right now, it may not seem that way. I'm looking at 3 good starters. Well, good's a subjective word. Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, and Greg Newsome. I think there is a good chance Greg Newsome could get traded this offseason. If he doesn't, he's still entering the final year of his rookie contract. As for Martin Emerson, he too, time flies, is entering the final year of his rookie contract. So there's a good chance that the Browns do not bring back both Emerson and Newsome after 2025. So if that means Will Johnson has a little bit of a quiet role his rookie season, so be it. There'll be a nice starting role waiting for him in 2026. But if the Browns do deal Greg Newsome, he's got a starting gig pretty much waiting for him right off the jump. Or if they don't trade Greg Newsome, I don't think we should be uberly confident that Martin Emerson is going to be coming back after his rookie deal is up. Let's face facts here. He had an atrocious 2024 season. There is no other way around it. He gave up 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, just 5 pass breakups. It was an abysmal campaign for Martin Emerson after a really promising 2023 season. So with all that being said, I could see corner, while it may not seem like a huge need at the moment, being a big need for the Browns in the future. And I think picking at 6, Will Johnson's going to be a surefire thing in my eyes, and I'm very happy with that selection. May not be a big, fun, sexy pick for the immediate short-term future, but long-term, I think Browns fans are really going to like it. Before we look at my final step in a perfect offseason, we crossed 40,000 subscribers a little bit ago. Now we're chipping our way to 50K. So we need 40 more subs to get to 40,300. So make sure you scroll on down, click the subscribe button for free daily Browns content. Step 5, it is, drumroll please, draft running back Kaleb Johnson. The Browns have to fix their rushing woes. They have been one of the worst rushing teams the last 2 seasons. And Kaleb Johnson in round 2, I think, is a great remedy. Let's get to know him. First off, I think he was somewhat lost in the mix this past season of college football because of phenom Ashton Genty. If you were talking running back, you were talking Kaleb Johnson. Well, Nick Chubb was also a round 2 guy. He kind of got lost in the mix a little bit. And look what happened to him. Incredible, successful career. And I think Kaleb Johnson could be kind of that player. 6 foot, 225 pounds, so good size altogether. He is not a scat back or, a really small, elusive, kind of speed demon kind of running back. No, he's a bowling ball that moves quickly. He is a workhorse back that can take on a ton of touches for all 4 quarters for an entire season. He is a violent rusher. He looks to fall forward. He does not look to step out of bounds. No, he's going to make you tackle him. He's going to fight for that extra yard. Does that ring any bells, anyone? Kind of reminds me of a certain guy named Nick Chubb in Cleveland. He also has not top-end speed, but big play potential. 18 plays or 18 carries of 20-plus runs for the Iowa Hawkeyes this past season. So I see the big play potential. The only con is he's probably not going to be the fastest running back at the combine. But again, Nick Chubb wasn't the fastest running back at the combine, and we all know how he turned out. And now I think about the Browns' rushing issues in general. Jerome Ford last year led the Browns in rushing yards with 565. That was the second fewest for a team-leading rusher. Only Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos finished worse with a team-high 513 yards. This has to be one of the biggest areas of needs for the Browns to address. So with that being said, let's look over my offseason plan one more time. Hedge my bets. You don't like Kirk Cousins? How about Justin Fields? You don't like Justin Fields? How about Kirk Cousins? Both are cheap. Both do not cost me any draft capital. And if neither one works out, well, here's the good news. You got 2 first-round picks waiting for you in 2026 to then go after the quarterback position. After moving back, go take a guy who I think is going to be a surefire perennial Pro Bowler and Will Johnson at a cornerstone position. And then address the rushing issues by getting Iowa's Kaleb Johnson in round 2. So how would you grade my perfect offseason? Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section below what grade you give it. To wrap up what I think was a pretty lengthy video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, let's pick a card. Reed, which card do you want to go with?
Let's go with 3 of clubs.
3 of clubs. I'm going to go with the 8 of spades. I was kind of close. Ace of spades. Ace of spades. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you all tomorrow.